Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Veterinary Services Program's listening session. We sincerely appreciate everyone who has made the time to work with us and provide their input to our programs here in NIFA. This is a very important listening session for us because it has been several years since we've gathered information from all of our stakeholders. And the program really needs this information in order for us to make decisions, move forward with some strategic planning, and just make sure that our programs are running efficiently and effectively for all of our stakeholders. Next slide, please. So just so you know, I'm Kathy Bjork. I am a national program leader with NIFA. I've been with NIFA over 3 years now. And VMLRP and VSGP are two of the programs that I run with Dr. Bob Smith, who is our other national program leader for this. So some of you have been in touch with Dr. Smith and I, or some of our other program staff. So always feel free to reach out to us either through email or phone calls whenever you need to talk with us. So today's listening session purpose is to collect stakeholder information for NIFA's veterinary services programs for our strategic planning. The information that we gather will be used to evaluate and improve processes for how we manage shortage areas. And those are our nominations, our designations, and the allocation process. The applications from our practicing food animal veterinarians, and that's inputs for the request for applications and the processing of those applications. We're looking for input into the matching or panel process, where every year we match our shortage areas with applicants. And then we have certain awardee requirements. So we need to hear from our awardees about what are requirements, how they impact their ability to work within the program and to provide the services that we require them to provide. Next slide, please. So for those who are not totally familiar with our programs, I'm just going to run through an overview of each program here briefly, just so we can make sure everyone has the same information. The Veterinary Medicine Loan Repayment Program, the purpose is to alleviate food animal veterinary shortages. The program helps qualified veterinarians offset a significant portion of debt incurred in pursuit of their DVM degrees in return for services in specific veterinary shortage areas. The program provides up to $25,000 per year for this educational loan repayment. A service agreement for 3 years is required, and it is renewable. This is a competitive process. In fiscal year 23, the funds to support the program were $9 million. And over the 13-year period since the inception of the program, we've had 2,061 applications, and we've awarded 795 veterinarians. This is a 39% selection rate. For more information, please see the website for the VMLRP, and that's provided below. Next slide, please. The VMLRP provides foundations for the Veterinary Services Grant Program. This program is also to relieve food animal veterinary shortages in association with the VMLRP. It was authorized by the 2014 Farm Bill with the first panel in 2016. There are 2 types of VSGP grants. The Rural Practice Enhancement Program, where we award $75,000 to $125,000, requiring a 3-year commitment, and the Education Extension and Training Program, $75,000 to $250,000 with a 3-year commitment. And this is also a competitive process with a 37% selection rate. The total applications for EET over the period that this program is operated were 171 with 62 awards. And for RPE, 187 applications with 69 awards. The funding in fiscal year 23 to support the program was $3.8 million. We have specific eligibility requirements stated in the RFA, and we have the website there at the bottom that points you to the RFA. For the listening session today, in the Federal Register notice, we posed 4 questions that we would like stakeholders to think about, respond to, or at least prompt them to think about other things that they might want us to consider. So the first question is, what is your top priority for the VMLRP and or the VSGP in the next decade? What are the greatest challenges that you see facing food animal veterinary practice with respect to the VMLRP and the VSGP in the coming decade? What improvements or enhancements would you make to VMLRP and VSGP? And what are the most promising opportunities or solutions for food animal veterinary practice with respect to the VMLRP and VSGP in the coming decade? So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Danielle to work through these, the virtual listening session guidelines and to give us some guidance for how we'll operate today.
Thank you so much, Kathy. So as Kathy had mentioned, the intent of this listening session is to gather input from stakeholders to guide programmatic changes for both VMLRP and VSGP. This is not a question and answer session, so NIFA staff will not be engaging in questions posed today. However, we do encourage you to email our team with any questions you may have. We will include that contact information in the chat shortly. Each participant will be allowed up to 10 minutes of speaking time. Our team will keep track of the time and will display a timer so attendees can also see the time remaining. This Zoom venue will be available until 3 p.m. Eastern time. If there is a pause in statements, we will continue to stay in the Zoom until the end of the scheduled time today. And let's see, this listening session is being recorded and it will be posted on the VMLRP webpage at a later date. All participants joining us today or participating through written comment will be informed once the listening session is posted. Next slide, please. Now I will cover the details of how to participate in today's listening session. To request to speak, raise your emoji hand. You can do this by moving your cursor toward the bottom of your screen, and there you should see an option to raise hand. Raising your emoji hand will put you in a queue to speak. You can see your place in the queue by clicking on the participants function at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see the order of other speakers who have their hand raised before you. When it's your turn to speak, the moderator, Dr. Kathy Bjork, will call on you. Your microphone will be unmuted, and you will also be given the option to turn your camera on if you want. We ask that once you are unmuted and your camera is on at will, you introduce yourself and let us know if you are representing an organization or an agency today. Again, all speakers will have up to 10 minutes to speak, so you have a general idea of how long it will take to get to your turn based on where you are in line. Once the 10 minutes are complete, you will be muted and your video sharing will be removed. You can participate more than once during today's listening session. If you think of more to share, simply follow the steps described here, which will also be shared on screen throughout the listening session today. If we have any deaf speakers with us today, please send the panelists a message in the chat so we can be prepared to accommodate for you today with ASL interpreters. Next slide, please. In addition to today's listening session, we are also accepting written comments until Wednesday, February 7th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please submit your written comments to vmlrp@usda.gov. Next slide, please. Both the VMLRP and VSGP are located in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability at USDA NIFA and within the Animal Systems Division, which is led by Division Director, Dr. Bob Godfrey. The co-leads for National Program Leaders are Dr. Bob Smith and Dr. Kathy Bjork. The VMLRP Program Coordinator is Marlene Azevedo. Myself, I am the VMLRP and VSGP Program Specialist, and our Program Assistant who works with VMLRP and VSGP is Meredith Berry. You can contact any member of our team by emailing vmlrp@usda.gov. Next slide, please. This is the USDA non-discrimination information slide. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. In accordance with federal civil rights law and USDA regulations and policies, the USDA and all agencies and employees are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family or parental status, income from a public assistance program, or political beliefs. We will be listing the contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. That language access services will be provided upon request, and that anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the contact information on this slide and the slide that will be, the information we'll be sharing in the chat shortly. Next slide, please. The slide you see now will be displayed throughout the listening session today. Now I invite you all to raise your emoji hands to get started today, and I welcome Dr. Bjork to begin the moderation.
Thank you, Danielle. At this time, I'm going to start looking for our first speaker, and I see at least one hand has been raised, and that is Kevin Hartley. Kevin, please go ahead.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin Hartley with the American Veterinary Medical Association. Thank you so much for hosting this session. And I just have a few comments. And of course, I'll be also submitting an email comments as well. So, what the AVMA, seeks to do is really complement the great work that VMLRP and VSGP is doing, to make sure, veterinarians can be placed in those shortage areas, and that we no longer have a shortage of public health and, food animal, practitioners throughout the U.S. And, when looking at VMLRP, I think there are, some rooms, for improvement as when you're going through your reports and looking for data that AVMA and other stakeholders can use and utilize to improve the program. And I think, one could be an examination of increasing the annual payment towards those qualified educational loans. Right now it's $25,000 per year, which is great. And over 3 years, that's $75,000. But if you look at the, average amount of student loans, that's increasingly about $185,000 per new, veterinarian. So within the scope, if NIFA can do it, looking at whether or not you have the authority and how that would impact the program going forward of increasing those awards amounts. And then also we would love to see retention data of the awardees. I think the last time we saw that was 2016, and they were great numbers. And if there's a way to see how many of these awardees are staying in the area post their 3-year service agreement, that's a great story to share with members of Congress to show just how effective this program is, and anything we can do to encourage, receiving, retention data. That's something members of Congress and congressional committees love, to see. And then two more issues I think would, as far as data points, if possible, to collect, is just, I know we have the student loan debt for, the awardees, but overall, if we could see that of all the applicants as well, just to determine, student loan burden on both the applicants and awardees. And lastly, I'll get off my soapbox, and, we would love to see an examination of the VMLRP program about the seasonality of practice type for, food animal practitioners, just making sure that all practitioners, given the different season of their practice, would be eligible, for, VMLRP, that they can, fit those requirements, and just to make sure seasonality is taken into account, for the applicants for VMLRP. Those are the 4 points I have, and of course I'll be emailing those over to you, but thanks so much and really appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you very much, Kevin. We have heard AVMA's comments in the past, and we always do appreciate AVMA's efforts for our student loan debt program, and we know how important it is to you all and how hard you work on this. So thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. It might be my system. Danielle, do we have anyone else who has requested to speak in the queue?
No, we don't have any other hands raised. So
Okay.
if you're on the call and you're having issues figuring out how to raise your hand, please message us in the chat, and we'll provide another description. But if you move your cursor towards the bottom of your screen, you should see an option, a couple options pop up. You should see access to your chat, access to Q&A, and then you should see 3 dots, which if you click on them, they should allow you to raise your hand. And if you're having issues figuring that out, if you just type in the chat that you'd like to speak today, I can go ahead and unmute you.
I see Mark Let's sorry, Mark, I murdered your name.
No,
Would you...
no problem,
you...
Kathy. I
Okay.
don't have much to add to Kevin's comments, and we will be providing comments by February 7th to you, and we work with you, quarterly. We see you guys, we sit down and talk about how the programs are going. From our perspective, I just want to thank you for this listening session, and thank you for being willing to make changes to the program. We think that quite frankly, I've been here throughout the whole time of the program, and I think this is the best team that you have running the program, and we look forward to working with them in the future. So we look forward to sending in written comments. We look forward to working with you on the program going forward. And we look forward to getting veterinarians in the USDA designated shortage areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate working with you and appreciate your comments about the program and the staff. We are, with this listening session, we aspire to do the best we can for our applicants, our stakeholder, the SAHOs who submit nominations, all of the folks that need the funding to stay in practice. This is the importance of our program, and we hear from applicants and awardees every year how important this is to them. We just want to make sure that we're doing it the best we can for all of our stakeholders, whether it's you all at AVMA or the state animal health officials, the applicants, the awardees, all of our important stakeholders and our producers who need to have food animal veterinarians in their areas. So thanks. Okay, I'm still not seeing any hands raised, but I do see that we have 34 attendees. So please feel free at any time to raise your hand. If you're still formulating comments, we will sit here and wait for those hands to be raised. I see that our attendees are across a fairly broad range in food animal veterinary practice. And we do want to hear from all of you, if it's even to tell us that you're submitting written comments so that we can keep an eye out for those, that would be great. Again, this is the inputs that we get today will be serving as our foundation, along with some of the data that we collect for how we move forward with the program. And that could be increasing the amount of awards. It could be the way that we allocate our nominations and nominated shortage areas. All of these things are on our radar to address this year. So we really do need that input. So I won't speak for a few seconds here. I don't want to tie up the session, but anyone who would like to speak, please raise your hand. Oh, I see Beth Johnson. Beth, please feel free to go ahead and start speaking.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I have a question. We had a large animal veterinarian who was practicing in central Kentucky. He had applied for the VMLRP and he had gotten awarded the first year. He applied, and then for 2 more years he applied, and both times he was denied additional funding because there was not enough dairy or poultry in his practice area. And so he's elected to discontinue large animal work and went to work for an emergency clinic because he just couldn't make ends meet working as a large animal vet. So is that something that is real, or is there something that he did wrong on his application that we can tell large animal vets? You know, what I don't understand why that happened.
I know we had I know we had said we weren't going to do a Q&A session, but I will respond with a short answer, and then we can work with you independently if you'd like to get in touch with us, because we do want to answer those types of questions in detail. So we don't have the specifics of this individual to see the application and the nomination.
Right.
Our panel does look at each application and nomination very critically to make sure the match is just right and that we are funding the best candidates. So I guess at this point, what I would recommend is that we will keep an eye on this one. And if you would like to contact us, we can talk with you offline and see if we can't answer this question for you, and see if there was something that happened in that area of Kentucky where maybe the market changed or something that made that nomination and that candidate not as good a match. So thanks, Beth. I would like to hear more about this.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely contact you. I'll get information from him as well.
Perfect. That would be great. Thank you. Do you have anything else, Beth? You have 7 more minutes, so please feel free.
No, that's it. Thank you so much for had
Sure.
a
Thank
session.
you. Thank you. Okay. Caroline Alsop, you are next.
Hi there, are y'all able to hear me?
Yes.
I currently serve in the South Texas area as a mixed animal practitioner. And I just feel that the way that the nominations are done are biased to the practitioner that submits them. So for instance, the practitioner that identified my area practices a couple of counties away from me. And near them, they don't have very many camelid species, so alpacas and llamas. But in my area, I serve a lot of those. And I just was hoping that there would be a way in the future to nominate other food animal or other producing species once you've already received once you're already a participant in the program. So if there is just a way to nominate more species, and then they could always be shut down or something like that, but just more feedback with the actual practitioner that is part of the program, rather than just relying on the initial submission form of the person that identified the shortage in the first place. Sorry, that was a little convoluted, but.
No, I appreciate it. And again, since we do have some time, rather than just saying that this is an input session, I will say that this is important information for us because it gets to the question of retention in an area and our desire to see our awardees stay in their areas and be successful. And if it's a species issue, it helps us to know that. We can also work with the state animal health official who's nominated an area and see if there is a way to modify the nomination to make sure you get credit for all of the food animal species that you're serving. Again, if you have an issue that is impacting you, please reach out to us so that we can help you be successful in your area. And we do try to make that point to everyone when we award veterinarians that the program does want to be here for you and make sure you're successful. So please, we have your comments here, and if you want to reach out to us to talk more, please do so.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes.
Let's see. Curry Riddick has asked to speak, but I think is having trouble raising their hand.
Okay.
So
So I am looking for the
Carrie.
name. Carrie.
Oh, it looks, I don't see Carrie.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see the
on.
names.
No,
but-
like they're no
okay.
longer on.
I'm hoping oh, Carrie Riddick. There we are. Hi, Carrie, can you hear me? And Carrie, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. You're muted still. I don't know if that's on our, I see unmuted. Carrie, can you speak?
Yes. Can you hear
Perfect.
me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I wasn't sure how I was listed on here. Thank you for offering this listening session. I am the current executive director for the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association. And this is very timely as we are looking at our state veterinary loan repayment plan. And we are actually trying to make ours more robust and following the examples of your program. We have found that our legislators really appreciate when we can follow a federal program as it's already been established and vetted. So first off, thank you for offering this and for all you're doing on the VMLRP. As we have been looking at our program, we have had quite a few discussions with UGA about, you know, how do we offer a more of almost like a scholarship type of program for students who are wanting to go into food animal medicine. And that became, as we kind of started looking at just the different, you know, parts of how, you know, who's going to manage that, who's going to make sure the veterinary students become, you know, a practitioner following the component, you know, the requirements. It just became quite complicated, and we kind of aborted that plan. But I know a few other states have really looked at doing that, and I hope it's going successfully. I would, you know, just encourage this program, if we're looking to expand, to try to expand into a scholarship or loan, you know, a scholarship that can be a loan forgiveness as they are graduating, because then students who are interested in going into food animal, and as those loan and debts are, you know, just rapidly piling up, they're able to know that they're already graduating without the debt, you know, or with less debt, as long as they meet the requirements. And then I think if they do have additional debt, you know, hopefully they're going into a state that also has a robust VMLRP plan. My second point that has just kind of blanked on me as I was talking, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm gonna have to remember that in just a second. Sorry.
That's fine. Sure.
I will raise my hand when it comes back to me. It's one of those
Okay.
days.
I
Thank you.
understand. Very good. So we've got your comments. We understand the intersection between our program and some of the state programs, and we are trying to make sure that we just follow the federal rules on this. We do like to see the state programs be successful as well. So that's excellent to hear. Please raise your hand again when you have, there's your hand back up, I think. Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
Yes, it just came back to me. I know something the AVMA is actively working on as well is the, you know, loan repayments being taxed on the federal side. So, you know, we are very supportive of that program not being taxed. And I'm just, you know, wondering if there's a way that the loan repayment plan, rather than being administered to the awardee, so it's becoming income, if it can be paid directly to the loan holder, thus avoiding it ever being received as taxable income for the awardee.
Okay, we will take that as a comment, and this is a very active area for us right now, along with AVMA and our policy staff. So I will say thank you for that. And I guess we'll just have to take it under consideration. I don't really have anything that I can share. Thanks, Carrie. Next, it looks like Andrea Gutierrez. Is that correct? Can you, oh, very good. Andrea, I see you're still muted. We'll see if we can get you off mute. Very good. Thank you. I can see that you're unmuted now.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for hosting this session. It's really appreciative that you guys take the time to reach out to active veterinarians that have received the reward. I'm in my third awardee, third time, I suppose. So I've received the renewal twice now, which is a great honor, and I'm really happy to continue to participate in this program. I'm located in northern New Mexico, and we cover about 1,000 square miles, and we definitely breach into the states of Arizona and Colorado. And I guess my comment would be, because of the distance that we cover, and every year I apply for the same area, NM 173 as a renewal, servicing Rio Reba and kind of adjacent counties. But what seems to happen, and I guess a little bit becomes like a detriment to my hours, is that I provide specialty services to bovine producers, specifically like high mountain disease testing. And what's considered our local sale barn auction area is actually located in Monte Vista, Colorado, which is 2 hours from kind of my central location to the area I serve, but literally across the border from the Rio Arriba County, which is our need-based region. And it actually becomes a need-based region as soon as you cross into Colorado. And I serve areas in Arizona that are also need-based. I guess my query is, during the documentation of our hours, I continue to provide need-based areas services, and I cross into those areas that I didn't actually apply for, but are still listed as such. And again, there's probably 3 veterinarians in northern New Mexico and no other accredited veterinarians to do high mountain disease testing. I guess my question is there a way to make it more fluidity in the areas that you're servicing, to overlap, you know, not just counties, but really states? Because in the end, especially in the pocket that we exist in, we have very, very few large animal vets. There's 3 of us that do livestock. There's several equine, but again, if we were to provide services to the areas that are listed, it really restricts our ability to then provide help to what's considered, again, the local sale barn that Rio Arriba County, northern New Mexico utilizes. It just happens to be in Colorado. So I guess those are, it's not something you have to answer, right? We can't come to a conclusion right away, but just to keep in mind that when we are listing our service times and hours, that could be taken into consideration, not just species or location, but the service actually being provided and the changes that we're making. We really should be a unified kind of 4 corners area in the end, because the cattle production in this area is highly dependent on all 4 states, Utah included. And although we don't necessarily have reciprocity in all these states, I'm licensed in all of them, and it would allow, I think, to further the progress of cattle producers if we can kind of continue to unify the area. We don't have kind of the luxury of the Midwest where we can raise thousands of cattle on one small area demographically. Landscape wise, we have to be a little more creative. So that's just my 2 cents.
So thanks, Andrea. I am going to do a real quick follow-up question with you here, just for clarification.
Sure.
If you can't include the other states, will you have trouble meeting your hours?
I don't know that I would, but I also don't want it to like show that I haven't been doing like the work that I've done. So I travel, 2 hours to go to Monte Vista to preg check over 500 head. And like, so and those cattle are coming from northern New Mexico. So it seems like it should be documented in a way that you can show that we're providing services, maybe not in what you listed. It might come close as I continue to do more of the pulmonary artery pressure testing. We're going to venture more into Arizona, providing these ranches are again supplying our producers in New Mexico, same with southern Colorado. And our goal this year is we're having our first annual high mountain bull testing in New Mexico, which is really exciting because we've never had like an accredited vet to do it. And so we're moving that direction, but I think in order to do that, it may take time away from New Mexico itself in order to, facilitate future momentum, if you will, from other states. So I guess it could. And so if that is the case, then it would become even more important for that to be considered, I suppose. I would hate to, lose out on a opportunity because I was in fact doing the service, just maybe not by the guidelines. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you've really described that very well. I think that it's clear you are providing services, but they have maybe extended beyond what is on the nomination form, but it still will serve the area that you are in. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So again, this is one of those, we do seem to have a lot of individual situations. I think that Mark or Kevin mentioned seasonality as well. We have so many of these different variables that affect
Yeah.
people's practice.
Exactly.
That, yeah, so we have noted that, and it's one of those things that we need to deal with in our strategic plan,
Mhm.
how we can help folks, especially if they're not being able to meet their hours, but more importantly, how we keep them in the program. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
it's noted. If you want to talk with us again individually, if you or speak about this anymore, please feel free. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, I guess my thought was just that to take into consideration that when you, and I get that when you're applying for a certain region, it helps to streamline the application process, especially for, because I did serve on the boards a few times too. And so when you're selecting a region, you need to be able to create sort of sections to be able to compare and contrast those individuals within a certain section. I think there could be an opportunity maybe somewhere on the application where you could add, would you have the ability to serve simultaneously another or an adjacent county or section that would continue to provide the need-based species and services, allowing you to kind of expand it, I guess, in a way that you don't feel like you're becoming a detriment to the area that you did serve, but more just as an adjunctive.
okay.
And then those could be, and if in fact, there's a way you could say that, and this is XYZ, how I will be serving those areas. And it could just be kind of noted in the application process that is an opportunity. Yeah, that's just an idea.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate the idea of providing a solution to us as well. That's very helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Sure. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to scroll down here, and I think Eric Olstad is next in our next in line here. Eric, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Eric. I'm faculty at the University of California, Davis, and I'm responsible for teaching the professional skills and communication portion through first through fourth years. And, UC Davis, we have a very large class size of 150 per year, and fewer than 5 end up going into food animal medicine per year, which, we have so few students that even our clinical rotations can't fill them with students. And so we're always looking at ways to improve these numbers and what can we do to bolster these numbers. And we were wondering, as since the awards are made in late September, but our graduation is in spring, has there been any consideration to offer these awards earlier in the year so that our students can secure funding rather than turn down positions that are being offered throughout the school year? Do you follow my question or my comment?
Yes. Yes, I understand. Yes.
And so has there been any talk of maybe offering that earlier in the year? And I know there's fiscal year considerations and all of that, but our students will have to turn down job offers potentially to wait for this award. And we have the issue here of our small animal offers in this state have grown so dramatically in this year. Our average contract now for a small animal veterinarian is up to $150,000 to $160,000 per year. And that makes it really, really hard to compete. And so we're trying to look for anything that we can offer these students to help make this easier for them.
Very good. So the short answer is we have not had this question before. We did make an adjustment in the program a few years ago to try to align better with the academic year. But as you note, our fiscal year pretty much dominates how we go through these processes. So this would be a change that we would have to consider. And I think what we'll do at this point, I guess I would say we take this under advisement. We would look at our program and see if there is any flexibility in the regulation or the federal rules where we could make a change like that. We tend to have some restrictions on how we operate within our regulations and rules and policy, to see how that would operate. And also how it would operate across all of the veterinary schools. That would be another consideration. So, but thank you. This is one of those we would have to think about a little bit harder.
And may I kind of add one extra kind of comment or
Sure.
question?
Yes, please. Mhm.
We were also wondering if there would be any potential, and I know that this would be a big long shot, of increasing the award amount to be more competitive with the offers that are being thrown at our students. You know, in the state of California, for each graduating student, we have 17 open job slots that they can squeeze into. And when the average food animal vet salary in our state is between 80 and 90,000 for their very first offer, compared to 150 to 160,000 for small animal, you can see how the finances can be very, very tough to justify, especially with an average student debt load of near $200,000. And so when this comes down to finances, you know, a lot of students end up dashing their food animal dreams just to make ends meet. And I'm not expecting you to solve that problem. I know that that's a much tougher thing to solve, but we're really looking at ways of how do we increase our numbers from, you know, 2 graduating food animal students a year out of a class of 150. That's really, really hard for us.
So I would say, wow, that is such a disparity between small animal and food animal practice. And I'm very sorry to hear that. The short answer to your question of increasing the award amount is yes, we are looking at that very closely because we have seen the increase in debt load over the last several years, and the program has not increased the amount of the award. And that is something we need to look at very closely. Hopefully we can make that change soon. But more importantly is the data that you just provided us is very helpful. That's not the type of data we can easily access on the difference in salaries, the numbers of students and so forth. So thank you for sharing that. And this is really the benefit of a listening session like this, where we get to hear these types of data without having to go out and individually try and pursue it. So thank you. If you'd like, you still have 4 minutes, please feel free.
And thank you for holding this. And again, I don't want to make this sound doom and gloom. And I am a small animal veterinarian myself, so this world is somewhat still foreign to me. I just, you know, we have a huge portion of our state in the middle of it, the Central Valley of California, that is one of the largest livestock areas in the entire United States. And it hurts to see all these students not be able to go back to that region, or not able to make ends meet to make that work out for them. And so if there's anything we can do of sharing information or you know, opening up some dialogue, there's large groups of people at Davis that would love to figure out ways to improve this number.
Great. Well, thank you. You know, Davis is a really important school, so we hope we can help in any way to. Sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
So Dr. Olstead, it sounds like you'd be open to us potentially reaching out back to you to follow up on more specifics if possible.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that our food animal faculty would love to be a part of this conversation as well, and very likely some folks in our administration.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. You still have 3 minutes. Dr. Olstead, is there anything else?
Oh, I'm all good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I see we have two more hands raised. Abigail Nicholson. Abigail, are you still here with us? And I see you're still muted, so hopefully we'll get that mute button. There we go. Can you hear me now? Can I hear you?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me just fine?
Yep, now I can. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm in northern Wisconsin, and I've actually received both the VMLRP and the Veterinary Services Grant Program. So I have a little bit of experience with it, and just kind of a couple of comments based off of the few veterinarians that have commented that it's not just them, because I can relate to the same issues, and especially the gal that was in New Mexico, with me being in northern Wisconsin, I could definitely do more work to get up in northern Minnesota, where unfortunately there's not a lot of livestock and there are no large animal veterinarians, and I think they get overlooked because of that. And definitely if I was able to reach out into that area, I would be able to maintain hours easier, because it is a challenge to maintain those hours. My VMLRP ended in 2019, and and I was looking at dipping back into it, applying back to it, but the pandemic has really changed the demographics in our area to such an extreme extent that I feel like just a few things need to be reevaluated, especially when I applied for the grant for the practice. We were awarded it in 2020, and pretty much everything that I wrote up has completely changed. So, those are just a few comments with that. And then I've noticed that we, being in northern Wisconsin, it's kind of hit and miss as to whether we are designated as an underserved area or not. And I think a lot of it stems, and I don't know if you can comment on this or if it's just going to be a comment from me, of there are a few quote unquote large animal veterinarians in the area, but I'm talking men that are in their mid to late 70s that maybe write a health certificate here and there. They don't do any emergency work. They do very little actual hands-on work. And I'm just wondering if those kind of skew the numbers, and if that's a little bit of what I battle against as far as trying to reapply to be an underserved area or to get loans so I can stay doing some large animal medicine. Because right now I'm really struggling to stay in the practice, stay with what I've been doing, and I'm actually just looking at getting out of it because it just doesn't financially make ends meet.
Abigail, when you say you would have to leave practice because of making ends meet, would the VMLRP loan repayment make it easier for you to stay in practice, or is that not a factor? Is it the market changes in your area or something else driving that?
It's a little bit of both. The market changes in the area, the dairy industry, ever since COVID hit with the pandemic, has just absolutely tanked. We've really struggled to keep up with that industry. And I mean, what farms I was going on and doing herd health, ultrasounding on, they bought ultrasounds, and now they have foreigners doing work. So now I've lost that, and I've thought, okay, let's think outside the box. I could go out into northern Minnesota and I could service some of these beef farms that desperately need a veterinarian, but that's Minnesota and I'm in Wisconsin. And so it's difficult for me to figure out how to make that logistically work. And when I was awarded that VMLRP in 2016, that $75,000 I got over the course of the year went towards interest. I still have this massive student debt that has been unchanged. Nothing has happened to it's 10 years out, and I've gotten these programs and these awards, and you know, and nothing has changed. And unfortunately, the grant services, it went to the practice. It didn't go to me. So now when I'm getting pushed out of the practice because I'm being pushed more towards small animal, because financially that's what the practice needs to survive. I wrote it for the practice, and so they can hire somebody else to do the little bit of dairy beef work for a lot cheaper. So those are the stone walls that I've run into 10 years out in practice.
Wow.
Kathy, can I mention something quickly
Yeah, please.
about between Abigail, Dr. Mickelson, and Dr. Guzera? Since you applied to VMLRP, there has been a change in the program that has allowed for state animal health officials to nominate joint state nominations. So this has been, you know, important for many regions of the country, from the Northeast to the Southwest, bordering states that serve a general community or have a large food animal population. You know, this is allowing potential applicants and awardees to practice in more than one state. So that's new as of the last 3 years. But it is also up to the state animal health official to nominate those regions. And so we work with them to let them know that this is something that they have the flexibility to do. But hearing directly from people such as yourselves would be a really important step in that process, and actually making those areas become nominated. I just wanted to share that piece of information.
Thanks, Danielle. That's an excellent point. And Abigail, I would reiterate to you to maybe connect with us again and see if we can connect you with the Minnesota SAHO about that nomination. But I think just as important is what I heard was the market changes, not only in the dairy industry, but also in the food animal veterinary industry, as they are using different sources of expertise or veterinary care that has impacted your ability to actually go out to some of these places and to serve those areas. So thank you for that. We are seeing market changes, and I think they are going to be very impactful. They are happening now, and they're going to continue to happen. And I don't know that we have a very easy answer for this right now, but thank you. And I'm sorry, you still have 2 minutes. Please feel free to continue.
No, that's no problem at all. And I would be more than happy to continue the conversation and how we can keep the industry alive in these northern, remote, forgotten about places, because I feel like it's still really important. And despite me, you know, potentially taking a step out of it, I'm fighting tooth and nail to stay in it, or at least keep the industry alive for the next generation to come up. So I can follow up with an email and that way kind of help come up with some solutions to a pretty tough question.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I also appreciate not only you, but others on this call who are providing us your individual experience and, you know, talking about the financial difficulties and the market difficulties and things that you're encountering. That's the kind of information that we need and that we really want to address in any way we can with our program. So thank you. At this point, if you have nothing further, I think we have Andrea is back in line again. Andrea, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I totally agree with, I'm sorry, what was the previous veterinarian's name?
That's Abigail Mickelson.
Mickelson. Dr. Mickelson is right on with most all of that, like being a sole proprietor, practice owner, now shifted from, I was working another job as an associate at a small animal clinic to like pay for building my large animal practice. There are pockets, there are communities that are more affluent in northern New Mexico, Los Alamos and Santa Fe County, which are not on the need-based region, but because there are vets in the area, but not one of them will touch a goat or a pig or anything livestock, but they're not listed, just like she was saying, because there's like maybe one guy who once said he did health. And so, but those areas are paying their bills, and like, I can't list them because they're Los Alamos and Santa Fe, but I am providing care to livestock animals. So I think there needs to be more analysis based on what type of care is being actually provided there. And I know that our state vets are going based on numbers when they write that up, and we can do our due diligence and go to our state vets and say, yes, these areas are actually need-based, but I don't think it's as black and white as we kind of make it out to be, based on region, the counties, demographics, pockets of, again, the more affluent communities or income, however they're kind of doing that. So I will do my best to speak with my state vet about our role in those areas, but I think it should be kind of taken into consideration more. And then just on Danielle's comment, I kind of put a quick note in, just for clarification, because I did see that was an option for that state vets to allow that to be a kind of state by state. But when we do the renewals, it's a bit trickier because we have to stick with our code that we originally applied for. And so it doesn't allow us to really be like, well, we're also applying for code such and such that is updated, right? So maybe on the renewal applications, you can have an option to apply for multiple locations, also servicing that area. Again, kind of on the same line of before, where you're not just applying for one region, giving vets opportunities to say, well, I live here, but I want to provide services in multiple locations, because it is helping me make my numbers. And you know, Dr. Mickelson said, like, we want to keep our doors open, and we reach out to these programs to be able to do that. But in the end, the interest is in a place that we barely are just staying above water. So money wise, if it could be given in a lump sum, it would be a lot more convenient. But I understand that we're given it quarterly because of our reviewing of our services, right? But by the time we get our services reviewed and you've given us our $6,250 or whatnot, we've already matched that in interest. So really lump sums of money would be $75,000 out the gate would be a lot more effective. I'm sure repercussions are harder, consequences to remove that money would be harder, but I think this is part of the trust that we're putting in large animal veterinarians, that we have to have some sort of incentive out there. Like, we already aren't going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. We are aware of our cap on how much somebody will pay for a cow. So those sort of things I think should be taken into consideration when with interest rates and the amount of money that we have sitting in our loan, that's not actually doing much when you give it to us in that format. So, but again, those are all things. Sorry, I got on a soapbox.
Oh, no, these are the kind of things we don't hear. And so we
Yeah.
do need to hear from you and any others who are experiencing these issues. This is, you know, we make these payments as a kind of a global, looking at how the individuals are affected and interest rates and so forth. So that's really important. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And you still have time, so feel free to continue.
No, I that's kind of all that popped into my head during that that Dr. Mickelson kind of reminded me I wanted to speak about. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. And I'm going to Beth Carlson. Beth, are you still there? Trying to see if I have Beth. Oh, now you're unmuted. Can you hear me? And could I try to hear you?
I am here. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you. Very good.
Okay. I just have a couple things. When a gentleman from California was talking about a couple things came to mind regarding increasing awards and trying to inspire or assist people motivated to practice food animal medicine in getting even getting into vet school. So North Dakota, I'm in North Dakota, and I'm with the North Dakota Department of Agriculture and the North Dakota Board of Animal Health. And we don't have a veterinary school in North Dakota. So we have a couple different agreements with other states and to help our students get into or to help our students get into other veterinary schools or to secure slots. And one of those is an agreement with Kansas State, which is a little bit unique. And obviously states that have their own veterinary schools can maybe discuss with those, you know, the administration at those schools if there's some sort of similar option. But what that arrangement is that we actually have a certain number of slots, and I don't remember the number if it's 4 or 5, but a certain number of slots that are reserved for North Dakota students. And we have a couple representatives from North Dakota who are on the admission panel for those students, and they help select them. And one of the qualifications is they select students who have an interest in and a experience and express a likelihood to be practicing food animal medicine. So obviously there's not a requirement or a stipulation that they must practice food animal medicine, or I don't believe there's a consequence if they don't, but that is one way that North Dakota, and that was established legislatively because those funds that those students receive, I believe it's the difference between resident and non-resident tuition towards their education. So they pay resident tuition at Kansas State. We have some similar programs that provide the difference between resident and non-resident tuition at other schools. But so that I don't know if there's that model could be used just to establish a certain number of slots at your veterinary school that might for students that have expressed some sort of aptitude or have studied, have a study pattern or a major that's focused on food animal in undergraduate that might help in that regard. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that when the discussion comes up about increasing the amount of awards, just that doesn't come at the expense of decreasing the number of awards, because that we always talk about a smaller award that helps a large number of smaller awards is still better than a smaller number of larger awards. So we still want to be able to help a significant number of veterinarians. So that would be my only comment.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. That's the kind of input that we do need, and that is what we will aspire to, is to make sure we don't reduce the number of awards. The other thing I'll just reflect back on is someone mentioned the tax payments, and we're trying very hard, and AVMA is working very hard to deal with the tax issue. And if we could shift to a non-taxable award, that would, and I see Kevin Kane has also mentioned AAVMC is working with AVMA on this tax issue, because that's a big bucket of money that we could shift to our awards rather than to just this loop back into the federal treasury, actually. So thank you. But thank you, Beth, for that, for all of those comments. I think that's very helpful, and hopefully it's helpful to other people on the call to see what other states are doing to help support the food animal veterinarians in their own state. And Beth, you still have 5 minutes. I didn't mean to take up any of your time, so please feel free if there's anything else you'd like to share.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think those are my big points. We do have a state loan repayment program that's been pretty successful. So the VMLRP, the federal VMLRP has really been a kind of piggybacks with our state program. And so we're very fortunate in that, you know, and again, that's one of the ways our state has kind of helped to support veterinarians, because we don't have a veterinary school in the state. And we've been able to make the argument that, you know, the state needs to step up because of the money they don't spend on supporting a veterinary college. That and fortunately, we've had some legislators that have been very vocal and supportive of veterinarians and veterinary education. So, you know, we're fortunate in that regard. Our state veterinary loan repayment program has been around for, gosh, coming up on 15 years now. And it's similar in amount to the federal program. It's different in a little bit different in how it's structured. It's a total of $80,000 over 4 years instead of the 75 for 3, if that's still what it is. But and it's a little bit different, but most years we're able to provide awards to 3, and so it's been we've learned a lot what not to do. We've had to tweak it, and but it's been helpful. So
Very good. So Beth, just in general, we had a question from Kevin Hartley, and we've had this question a few times about retention. We don't have an easy way to collect those data across the program yet, although we are working on it. But in your program, are you seeing good retention with your state program?
So we have seen good retention after our tweaks. We had, and unfortunately, this probably isn't going to be helpful for your purposes because, well, and I mean, maybe, so one of the focuses of, there are certain things specified in the law that we have to weight our applicants on. And one of them is a commitment to serve the community, community support. And the ways that those are weighted are, you know, obviously what they might, they submit a the applicants provide a letter that of their statement of commitment to the community, why they want to practice in that area. And then also letters from the community as to why they need a veterinarian. And obviously if that person has already started practicing there, those letters may be specific to that veterinarian. So originally there was a stipulation in our program that they did not want those funds to go to individuals who had received any kind of support or financial support from the state of North Dakota towards their veterinary tuition. And as I mentioned, we have those other programs that support the kind of a subsidized veterinary tuition many students don't have to pay non-resident tuition at out-of-state colleges. And so that actually penalized North Dakotans in applying for jobs in North Dakota. And we had very poor retention in out-of-state people who were applying. Those people, even if they stayed the term of the agreement, most of them left as soon as it was over. And those were the people that often didn't even stay the term of the agreement. So, I mean, North Dakota is maybe a little different than a lot of places, but a lot of the rural areas that probably qualify for this program, the people that want to go there are people that are from those kinds of areas in general. So we have found that it does work better as a retention program, or at minimum, people that have already at least had a taste of working in that community. And so applications are stronger if they have, we do put a little bit of weight on those letters of community support and the commitment to the community. But they also, there's a certain amount of weight that has to be put on even just the size of the community, and they get bonus points for providing auction market service, because that's always a struggle to have veterinarians that are willing to provide auction market service. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, we do have data on how many of those veterinarians are still in the community, or how many are still in the state even, because I think that's ultimately the main goal of our program, is to keep those people in the state. And the majority of our applicants, if they're from North Dakota, they're still in the state. And if they're not from North Dakota, the majority of them are no longer in the state. That's the data for the state program. People from North Dakota don't really want to stay in North Dakota. There's a handful of the non-North Dakotans that are still here after the program's over.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That is the kind of information we wouldn't be able to gather unless unless you came forward with that. So thank you very much.
One more thing that we've started and collect is, and one thing that I think is that we can is very true, is that those students that are, I should say, veterinarians who have received these funds are able to become partners in those clinics much sooner. Maybe they were going to come anyhow, or maybe they're going to stay anyhow, but they're able to become, maybe it inspires them to become a partner, and so strengthens their tie. Obviously, once you're a partner, you're committed to that area and you're going to stay longer, or inspires them to start their own practice, or and then they're committed. So.
That's great. Thank you. Because for veterinarians, that can be very important, is to have some ownership and equity in a practice to keep them there. So that's something we haven't actually looked at in any of our data either. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. At this time, I don't see anyone else with their hand up. And I thought what I'd do is I'm going down to see if Kevin Kane is still with us. Kevin, you did mention the work that you all were doing from AAVMC. And I thought maybe if you would like to come off mute and just make a few comments about what AAVMC does, similar to AVMA. With that, I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't want to speak, but you're certainly welcome to.
No, that's not a problem at all. Actually, as I said in the notes earlier today, we AAVMC were happy to do a survey for USDA NIFA on these programs specifically for our deans and interested parties across our association, and we will be using many of the results of that survey to inform our comments, which we'll be submitting probably by the end of this week. And it's a lot of some of the things that you've heard from some of the other participants today, including AVMA. I think we're on the same page on a lot of those issues. But just one thing to bring up, one of the the things that we are looking at, there is going to be tremendous growth in the number of colleges of veterinary medicine over the next 10 years. We are looking at somewhere, we have heard between 10 and at least 10 and possibly 13 colleges of veterinary medicine across the country that will be opening or in the planning stages or already have their letter of reasonable assurance from the Council on Education, which is the accrediting body. So, you know, you're looking at a pretty large increase in the number of classes and the number of students just over the next really 5 to 10 years. One of our largest problems that we are looking to address at the federal level and really nationwide is something that we actually have a task force on now is faculty for those. On average, it's about 50 or more per school, and that's probably a bit of a low number. So we, especially specialty faculty, so radiologists, veterinary cardiologists, those sorts of faculty, we are really in a shortage situation, and that's going to get worse. So we're trying to, you know, how do we address that, and how do we, how is that tied to our graduates who do go into food animal practice, and what does that look like? So just to kind of give you a sense of sort of what our world looks like going forward, is an exciting time in veterinary medicine. Absolute academic veterinary medicine, absolutely. Do we have some bumps in the road ahead? Yeah, we certainly do. So thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. We hadn't even talked much about what's on the horizon with all of the new schools that are coming online and how that might affect the markets and where those students will be practicing once they leave. But that, you're right, at least 10 more schools, that is a huge number. That is a lot. So thank you.
And we just, you know, kind of historically, I mean, if you look at veterinary medicine, sort of, we kind of go in surges, I think, for lack of a better term. So we will go for many, many years with no new schools opening or 1 or 2, and then we will have suddenly 4, 5, or 6 that open, and then we will go for a long time. Well, this is one of those that is really sort of unprecedented. I don't think we've ever had this many schools on the drawing board, at least looking back historically at the data that we have in our records. And we as an association have been around since 1966. And of course, the colleges have been around much longer than that, but it's really kind of unprecedented.
Wow. Very good. Kevin, do you have any idea of the ratio, and this is really, I'm asking a speculative question, of food animal to small animal type or mixed practice that these schools will be focusing on?
You know, it differs from school to school. From some of the ones that we've talked to or we've heard, we've had conversations with some of the folks who are planning. Just to give you an example, the state of Kentucky, you know, oddly, given that it's the horse racing capital of the US and possibly the world, does not have a college of veterinary medicine. They have had a long-standing agreement with Auburn University. So I think somebody earlier today talked about the cooperative agreements that some of the states have with states that do not have colleges of vet med. Kentucky is one of those. Kentucky is looking at not the University of Kentucky, at least not right now, but another school in Kentucky is looking at opening a college of veterinary medicine. And one of the things that they mentioned and have talked about to the state legislature is, you know, finding and keeping food animal practice veterinarians in the state, because they have a shortage just like many other places across the country. So that is, excuse me, that is one of the factors that is definitely going into some of these decisions, but it really kind of depends on the area of the country and the schools sort of motivations. Clemson is another one. South Carolina has never had a College of Veterinary Medicine in the state. That they've always had agreements with Georgia and some other states across the South. But Clemson will be opening a College of Veterinary Medicine. The state legislature has already given them a pretty good chunk of money to do that. But again, one of the arguments that they made to the state legislature was this shortage of food animal veterinarians, and they do plan to concentrate on that. Having said all that, there's nothing that we or anyone else can do to force somebody to go into food animal medicine. Once they graduate and they pass the NAVLE, the world is wide open. You heard somebody from the faculty from UC Davis talk about the salary discrepancies and things like that. And from our experience and research, that plays a tremendous role. And it also is where students want to go practice. If rural areas are difficult, and that's really these programs, VMLRP and VSGP, are so critical. And if I could talk members of Congress and into funding them at 100 million, I would do that tomorrow. I absolutely, I just, and it's one of the things that we and AVMA prioritize all of the time, because you've got to level up that playing field some, and right now it's not.
Thank you. Excellent comments, Kevin. And I appreciate that you are able to bring that educational component forward to us, because we do, we tend to focus on the shortage areas, applications, match, awards, and things. And the pipeline is really important for how we're getting people into our system.
It is. And I'm sorry not to interrupt, but
the
last few years in particular, we have really, and our admissions folks have really concentrated on outreach to groups like FFA, like 4-H, people who have an ag background and even a rural background, or a combination of the two, and want to go into practice in those areas. And in food animal, we only admit people who apply, and that's a difficult conversation to have sometimes. So if you don't have people applying who want to go into food animal practice, then they don't get admitted and they don't graduate. So you're absolutely right. The pipeline is really the key, and I think we have done sort of yeoman's work the last few years in particular in really trying to reach those folks who at least might be prone or might want to go back into practice in those areas.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think that USDA has really important programs in rural development as well, because we know what's happening in rural areas where we're losing population, and we're losing, producers, and the dairy industry has been really heavily impacted. So I think it's not just money for these people who are entering food animal practice. It's also the entire system that they're having to operate in. So I appreciate you raising
I'm so
that.
glad you mentioned that. I know I'm at the end of my 10 minutes, but it's that you'll see that in our comments as well. We definitely refer to it really has to be a totality of programmatic assistance, whether that's housing, transportation, kind of across the board. And however, someone mentioned, I think the Small Business Administration and how that sort of ties in. It's all of the above. It's not just loan forgiveness, although these programs are absolutely critical. And as I said, I wish they could be much larger, would be much larger in size and funded much better, but it's an across the board kind of holistic approach, and it has to be.
Excellent. Thank you. And, even though we're going to move on now to Eric in a moment, if you do want to share more, please just go ahead and raise your hand again, because we do have time. We're not limited on time right now. And I think these are topics that are really important for us in the programs to see, is that it isn't just how we operate a loan repayment program. It's really a bigger issue. Let's put it that way. So I'll quit talking because we want inputs. So I'm going to move on to Eric now again. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Eric, there you are. You're still there. I see that
Perfect.
you're unmuted. Go
I
ahead.
didn't realize I had the power there. So I
Have the power.
thank you. As I'm listening to everyone else, and there's a large representation of regions here that are much more advanced in the food animal realm than we are. And by advanced, I mean probably the numbers are a lot greater in some of these regions, and like in Wisconsin and those types of areas. My question or my comment maybe is there any way to potentially open up this program to any food animal practitioner rather than those in rural areas? Because in our situation where the numbers are so small, it would be interesting if this could be offered to any food animal student or any food animal practitioner. Has that been considered, or is that something completely wild?
Well, I'll take a stab at this, and then I guess we'll maybe have to consider it as we process the listening session. We are in some ways restricted by the regulation and how the program was established to serve veterinary shortage areas. And so to open it up to anyone could be a major shift in how the program was established and in changing regulations and rules. And so in the short term, and I think we'd be seeing 3 to 5 years as a short term, I don't see that happening. However, if the demand and the need was there and documented, that is an initiative someone could undertake. And that's probably the best I can say at the moment. If anyone else, Dr. Bob Smith, if you have a comment on that, please weigh in. Otherwise, because I don't think we have anyone else with their hand up at the moment to speak. But if Bob, if you have a comment on this, please feel free to weigh in. I'm not even sure that Bob is still on. I shouldn't have called on him.
No, I'm here, but no, I don't have anything to add. Thanks for asking, Kathy.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. But Eric, sorry, now that I've given you that long-winded answer, please feel free to continue on your comment and any ideas you have for us there.
Well, it's really tough because in California, we have very rural areas as well. And many of those areas have difficulty supporting an additional vet or supporting a vet, period. And that's why there's a shortage there. So we're trying to solve a problem that'll be very difficult to fix itself, because the draw is for, our students, if they are food animal, to go to these large dairy practices or go to these large other type practices that can offer a salary that can help pay back the extensive loan that has been taken out. And so, we're always just brainstorming ideas of how best to, what carrot can we provide people at the end of a stick to try to make that decision, aside from, greater outreach into our central San Joaquin Valley, of course. But again, our vet school is largely overrepresented by, affluent folks from San Francisco, San Diego, and those types of things, which have next to no food animal representation in those cities. And so myself, I am from the Central Valley, so this is pretty near and dear to my heart, and I'm always looking at ways to try to increase these numbers. But it's tough with the, I think last year we graduated 3 or 4 of these students, and I would love to be able to say, hey, here's this program that you can sign up for and they will help you pay back. But determining which rural areas are supported under this, really puts a stop to it very, very quickly. And so I appreciate everything that's been done. And again, I know this is out of most people's hands to answer these questions immediately, but just trying to look at ways to increase these numbers.
Very good. And I just thought I'd mention, as you were talking, the distributed type of veterinary program that Texas has been running. And I'm sure you're aware of it, but we have talked to them in the past about how they are drawing students. Texas is very different from California. They have different, types of livestock distribution and so forth. But I'm just wondering if there is another way to structure veterinary education similar to what they're doing to get people into school and out into these rural areas better. But anyway, that's just a comment.
Yeah, we have, of course, we'd love to see when students are applying that show a large animal interest, but the problem is there's no repercussions if they go out into small animal practice after saying that they like large animal. And of course, these students are smart. They're probably gaming our admission system at some point along the line, saying, I love large animal, and then, pow, switching over, because the salary differentials in this state are very, very dramatic. And so, we've thought about, having contracts be signed and all of that, but, how do you enforce that kind of stuff? And that's probably beyond the scope of this listening session here. But, I'd love to hear what other people are doing and how best, this is going on. But, anything to get these students into large animal essentially is what I'm looking for.
Great. Very good.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I think we have a couple more people. Diane Kitchen, your hand is up. Please feel free to go ahead if we can get you off mute. Diane, there you are off mute. Would you like to speak?
Yes, mine should be fairly brief. I just have, I am a state animal health official, and so I'm involved in the development of the shortage area designations and that sort of thing. And what we have found is that, or my concern is that with both of these programs having to share the shortage areas, what we have to do then is make choices between a practice that might more be appropriate for VMLRP versus one that is needing to apply for the VSGP. And so since we are limited on having 4 shortage areas that we can designate, what happens is sometimes if we focus on a particular area that might need one of the programs, it then cuts out somebody in a different part of the state that might need one of the other programs. And so we just wondered if there's any way that those could be not be linked, or that you have some extras that could go under the VSGP that were not and not cut short our VMLRP designated areas. That's the gist of what I'm.
Sure.
And Dr. Kitchen, I know we spoke at USAHA and you were mentioning that you felt limited by the allocations for the state of Florida for both programs.
Overall, yes. I mean, we had areas that we have in general, we have more applicants of geographic areas that we at least feel like are legitimate enough to submit an application for than we have allocations. We have 4 as our limitation. And so this year we had 7 very strong candidates, and again had to make choices of some of those practices or practice areas are because actually we have one area where multiple practices are kind of getting together, trying to get a position that is shared among them, trying to find a way to be able to financially to support this additional person and that sort of thing. But some of those, we had 7 distinct desired applications, but we can only submit 4 of them. And so, it does get tough at times when the reality is that all of them need some assistance.
Very good. And so I think that gets to the allocation process. And we have had comments from others about how allocations are made. Do you want to expand on that some more and talk about allocations? It might bring up some other SAHOs who are on as well, who might want to address this, because that is one of the important points of why we held this. So please feel free.
Well, certainly, I mean, we very much, and I think other states do also, we very much reach out to the practitioners that we work with on a regular basis for food supply practice of one type or another. So we utilize a lot of different ways to evaluate practices that we need to reach out to. We have an annual food animal conference, and so we do a lot of networking there to say, are you needing an associate? What have you found? Talk to them, engage with them as far as that goes. And the College of Veterinary Medicine is engaged in that meeting and also in discussions that we have, as far as are your students finding places to go or needing places and that sort of thing. Then we also work with our diagnostic lab of veterinary practices that have expressed a concern that are doing submissions through our diagnostic lab is another source of veterinarians that we go to prior to the allocation time and start figuring out who it is that is having what needs and get them to answer some of the same questions that are on that and provide us that information so that we can then internally among ourselves evaluate those. And we actually talk to some other agencies in the state when we go through that review of the in our case one of the food supply areas that we have is aquaculture. So we work with our division of aquaculture regarding what are the needs, what is industry saying is their need, and that sort of thing to try and evaluate how real the need is.
Very good. Thank you very much. You still have 4 minutes. If there's anything else you would like to bring up, please do.
If there's anything you all want to ask of us or any time as far as that goes, but otherwise I will relinquish my time to the next participant.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yep.
for coming, Dr. Kitchen.
I think we will move to James Roush. James, are you still there? Can you hear me? And can you come off mute?
I am still there and I am off mute.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to both kind of reiterate the previous question about can it be extended to graduate veterinarians and emphasize the broadness of the problem we're talking about. It's good to focus on where starting salaries are, and certainly that's an important factor. It's also a factor based on the state you're in. I'm from Kansas State, and when you look at comparative salaries of food animal veterinarians here in Kansas versus food animal veterinarians who take a job outside of Kansas, it's even harder to keep them here in Kansas because the average salary is, the last I saw, on the order of $15,000 less than they're going to be offered if they go out of state, and that's not including high salary states like California and so on. So that's a part of an issue too, which impacts it, from graduation onwards as an associate and farther, if salaries in your state are depressed. Mean salary of all veterinarians in Kansas last year was $95,000, where it's starting, where it's $125,000 for all veterinarians nationally starting. So that makes a big difference in a drain. But the other part of it is to point out, I was one of those perfect students for our food animal recruitment at one time. I was from a small farm in Indiana. I only had cattle on my mind. I went into dairy practice for 2 years. It was a well-known and high quality practice. And it took me 2 years to go, this is great when I'm 25, but it's not going to be so great when I'm 50 and I'm tired of not feeling my toes. So it's retention as well as just recruitment on the basis of salary and interest. That's essentially all I had to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent comment. And we hear those types of stories over the years of folks who are, it's a struggle with aging and the demands, the physical demands, and the rural character of it. And it does impact practice. And I'm not sure that we in this program can address that. But the more I listen to these comments, the more I realize that we may benefit, that veterinary practice might benefit from more involvement in as a holistic approach. I'll put it that way. And the impacts of salary differences between states and the impacts of aging and so forth. These are bigger issues and things that I think we just need to make sure that we at least raise these issues with our stakeholders, even if we can't fix them in the short term. So thank you for that comment. So we don't have any hands up right now, but I'm fine with anyone who wishes to comment. We are about, it looks like we are an hour and 45 minutes into this. Is that right by my clock, Danielle? Is that where we're at? So we still have plenty of time, and we will leave we'll kind of leave things open here for anyone who wants to comment, and we'll.
I did add the questions that we covered earlier to kickstart this listening session. They're in the chat for those of you who are just joining us. Some questions that we're posing just to, prompt you to think about the future direction of both of these programs, but also whatever else you're interested in sharing. We hope to hear from more people who are online today, so feel free to share. It looks like Dr. Mickelson has got her hand up. I'm going to allow you to
Okay,
talk.
good. Thank you. I was looking at the chat and I missed that.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Just the more that I'm listening to things and everyone's different input, the more I come back to the other approach that is probably difficult for where you guys are positioned to see, but what I see in the industry all the time is combating why there's such a pay discrepancy. And I think a lot of it is large animal clients, horse clients, dairy beef clients. I touched on a little bit of what veterinarians are competing against in that industry, which is lay people practicing veterinary medicine. And essentially we can't do anything about it. Like we just lost a dairy farm here where their hired individuals are doing all of the ultrasounding. So now we are completely out of that dairy. And when one of the veterinarians had called the state board, they said there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. So I think something to think about. I have no idea how you would approach this, but something to bring up that you may not be aware of is that large animal practitioners are fighting on two fronts. Not only are we not getting compensated, we have massive student debts, but now our competitors have zero student debts. And these producers are just trying to survive themselves. And so they're just seeking out the cheapest possible services. So I think that's contributing to some of these issues that we're seeing as well. And I just don't see how much of that would be I don't think there's a lot of that on the small animal side, but that's definitely on the large animal side that we see.
Very good. Thank you. And that's a huge factor when you think about it from a market perspective, is the market for, or the services, the needs for those services, and how veterinary medicine perhaps will be impacted. I'm not sure that, as you said, we really don't have a mechanism for responding to that, but the profession will probably need to be where that response comes from. And that, when I say the profession, I mean the veterinary profession, and then also the producers, all these groups. If veterinary services are needed across the board, we need to see stakeholders step up and help make it work, or we will lose veterinarians in these shortage areas, and that won't be good for the producers either. I see Brian Reed's hand is up. Brian, please go ahead.
Yes, hi, Kathy. I'll just comment from the last comment too about the food animal practice and the challenges we have. For the record, Brian Reed. I'm a primarily dairy practitioner in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. I also am the project director for the AABP grant that we have on the education side, training early career veterinarians in business management. And one observation that I would have, just from the perspective of my role at AABP and the people I interact with there, and our job board, the amount of jobs that are open. One thing I'd like to, I guess, stress is that it appears that the need is really for an awful lot of mixed animal veterinarians, because a lot of times we focus on the food animal exclusive vets. I happen to be just a food animal exclusive vet, have wonderful career, have no regrets. But it seems like the need is in the mixed animal practice area. There's just an awful lot of communities across America where that's really what the community needs. They maybe can't sustain even a high quality small animal practice maybe in a small town in rural America. They certainly can't sustain the food animal exclusive component in a lot of communities, because the industry's gotten consolidated in a lot of dispersed areas. So I just kind of wanted to add that comment, because I think the secret to a lot that we find in our practice management sessions, the secret to a lot of rural veterinarians actually making a successful business and building a successful business is to go that mixed animal route, because they, that's how they can piece together enough of a job to not only support one veterinarian, but the problem is, if you only have one veterinarian, the on-call is just overwhelming. The lifestyle issues are overwhelming, and it seems to be easier to build up a little bit larger practice, let's say a 3 to 6 veterinarian practice, something like that, when we have both of those components, and then we can have a little bit better on-call schedule and some things like that. Not quite sure where I want to go with that as far as changes in the program, but I think there tends to be a focus, maybe even at the university level, but a focus on, okay, you're either small animal, you're a large animal, and you're kind of getting pulled in different directions. Even when you're in vet school, are we going to be food animal? Are we going to be small animal? And we need to kind of be in it together. And I think there needs to be training programs and focus both at the college level and after, in like the programs we're doing, really learning about practice management, business management of mixed animal practices, because it is kind of a little bit different than either small or large. And sometimes I think it gets ignored at the university level, because we're focusing on developing experts and specialists in the different components. So again, I would just add that to the comments, and if we can encourage that in any way, I think that it seems to me like that's where a lot of the needs are.
Very good, thank you. I think in the program, we try to address the mixed animal piece by having these type 2 category shortages, but it sounds as though that might not be enough, I guess, at this point. So that's a good point that we need to see if we can work on that a little bit more. So thanks, Brian.
Yep, welcome.
I think we have Andrea Gutierrez. Andrea, please feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-oh, Andrea, I lost you. It went to mute.
I'm mute.
There you go. Did we lose her again? Andrea, I don't know if you can hear me, but we've lost your mic.
I apologize. That was my mistake. I accidentally muted her and removed her permission to talk. Sorry about that. I was trying
That's
to do that for
okay.
Dr. Reed.
I figured it was me and technology, so. No, it's no problem. I just was gonna comment briefly on the previous mention of mixed animal. And I mean, 100% when I'm out on farm calls, they'll be like, well, while you're here, can you vaccinate my dog and neuter my cat and, get what you can. So we've kind of created a One Health. We won't see the small animals unless we see their livestock, because there's also this new, I guess, way of approaching just medicine in general in the veterinary world, where mobile practices with small animal only has become pretty prevalent. And the convenience of that for owners obviously is above and beyond for them. But that in itself can start to pull you away from really the goals of what we started, which was to service livestock. And I agree that it would be fantastic, and it would create a great bread and butter situation if small animal was part of your large. But what I think ended up happening with most mixed animal practices is that they saw they were making more money in the small, and were like, well, let's just cut out the large. And so, at least in our area, we have to, again, select only our clients that we provide livestock care for, and say, okay, well, we do have, we can do preventive health for small animals, but if you're needing, emergency care, medical services beyond in a hospital setting, then you'll have to seek that other locations. So what our goal is in the future, and I guess this is pertaining to the question that was listed in the webinar chat, was like, what is the future with working with the VSG program, is that I received the VSG in conjunction with the VMLRP my first year, so it was 2017, and I was able to buy a mobile shoe, the vet box, and an ultrasound. And phase 2, if you will, our goal was to create a clinic setting where maybe it's kind of the modular prefab vet clinics, but it would be located at our Bull Development Center, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but in New Mexico, that's easy to find. So it would become like a satellite clinic for multiple large animal or small animal mobile vets to utilize the facility for whatever they needed that day. So if it's an equine vet and they wanted to use the corrals, but also the stanchions, but also they did some cytology, so they used the lab center. It would allow it to become more of like a co-op where it's used as needed by those that need it. And I think we just have to start looking outside the box a little bit more, and thinking of programs in that way where it's not going to be the same setting as it was in the past of a mobile or mixed animal. It has to be kind of all of it, but also utilized in a way that's, again, more fluid, but tangible for everyone's use. And if we try to kind of put a round plug in a square hole, we're going to keep hitting walls. So I'm excited to reapply for the VSG in this capacity, and I'm hopeful that people have an open mind to it in a way that the facility would be used as more of a mixed animal practice. And, we'd have x-ray and a full lab and just anything that any vet would really need in a location that could be utilized whenever is needed. And I guess that's just my 2 cents about how things are moving in our area. Because of our location, again, and because of how few vets we have in the area, I think we need to find ways to create a community. A lot of our large animal vets are lone wolves, and they're not interested in hiring an associate. So I think, yes, that would be great to have a mixed animal practice so you could hire an associate, but that's actually, I think, part of why people do large is because they can create their own universe. And so it allows them to be young moms or dads and own a practice and make their own schedules, but use the space to the standard of care that people expect for veterinary medicine. So anyways, another soapbox.
That's great. Well, and as you were talking, I think that so much of our program has been targeting more of the large operations, large producers, and so forth. I think in a lot of ways we haven't, and even as Brian said, we haven't had as much, I won't say success, but maybe we don't discuss enough how we address mixed animal practice and the small operations out there,
right,
that are sustaining our food animal practitioners. So those are important comments, and I appreciate it. I try to take notes. I appreciate your comments on the facilities and so forth. So it's an interesting approach. So thank you.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of how we have, producers that have like 30 head, and we have them that have 300, but the ones that are having just even the 30 head are there managing these animals and the land, which I think is a huge part of our area, and how we take care of the environment is really with our producers. And so it's all like in conjunction for, continuing to allow this lifestyle for people. It comes with having a trusted relationship with your veterinarian. And that just hasn't existed in northern New Mexico for so long. So the struggle really has been for people to know that we are going to be a consistent and long-term, pillar in this community. But if you can't pay your bills, then that can't happen. So I guess that's sort of the idea, is that we can't just rely on the production medicine all the time. And so if we are really talking about rural communities, because I think, you know, you have my buddy in Nebraska is doing just fine with his beef operation, money wise, but like really this is talking about rural communities that have these kind of mosaic of animals that are crossing state lines, and we have EIA, but you know, just like all of these little tracking of zoonotic and disease processes that can happen even in these small communities, it's bigger than that, I think. So yeah, just kind of reminding ourselves that it's not gonna fit every mold, and knowing that we can kind of be flexible with that, like, and how people apply for those grants. So
Very good, thank you. And I especially appreciate that you raised the VSGP and that topic, because that was part of our listening session, was to get feedback on the VSGP.
yeah.
And that's really important, because not everyone understands the availability of those grants, and they can be challenging to apply for. We know that not everybody is good at writing grants, and it's good to hear of your success stories for receiving a grant from that program, and others might be interested in applying. So how we promote that and get folks comfortable with applying is really important, and it looks as though it's important to rural communities to have the foundational and the infrastructural work for these practices. It's not just their loan repayment. It's getting a truck or a chute or or some sort of a mobile facility that works. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I would encourage, it feels daunting for sure to go through the process, but I would encourage anyone considering it, large equipment items or otherwise, to try and apply for it. They have pretty good step-by-step help sessions that are out there that can move you through it, but it's worth an effort.
Good.
So.
Good, thanks, Andrea.
Mhm.
You still have a minute or so if there's anything else you'd like to share.
No, I think I've hit all my moments, but
It's okay.
I really do appreciate you guys creating this format and forum, and it's encouraging to have other vets speak as well about their experiences, and knowing that you're not, because like I said, a lot of us are out there doing it day to day by ourselves. So it's nice to know there's others doing it, and maybe we could create some sort of like format too, where the other vets that have received it can kind of link in together. Would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings up
Go ahead,
a
Peggy.
good point for us, and we're trying to look into some sort of mentorship, private sort of access webpage for people who've received the grants, applied to the grant, and those who are interested in applying, to maybe connect and create this larger community that our colleagues at the National Institute of Health have developed for a similar loan repayment. And so your comment there on creating some sort of network is something we're looking into, and also very worth sharing the want or need for that between mixed animal and food animal practitioners. So if you have anything else you want to share on that note, please let us know.
No, I think that would be great. I, oftentimes don't know if we're doing it right out there or not, but I think it's nice to know, like, sometimes you've gone through it and you're like, let me just share this with you so no one else does it this way. Or the other way around is always better, but it just seems that like we're doing our best to create a sense of community here, but I think on a larger scale it would be great to have that kind of platform for other vets. So appreciate that if you can do that for us.
Well, Danielle is one of our communication stars here, and she really likes to see people well connected. So we will certainly make a note of that, and we'll see if we can't continue in making that happen and generating those connections. And I think it looks like, Kevin, you raised your hand when this topic came up. So if you have something you'd like to share, please go ahead.
Yes, sure. I just put that in the chat, but we thought of this in our comments, and you'll see this as well. That is a great idea. We mentioned that in our comments as well, and perhaps with some NIFA assistance, I think our schools, one or more of our schools, it's an IT issue, and I think they would be more than willing to work on hosting something similar to that. At AAVMC. We have a network that's called Connect, and that's exactly what it is. It's a group connection system for our deans, for our associate deans, that sort of thing. And it's relatively easy, and I don't think it's super expensive to host and set up, and something along that format. I completely agree would be a wonderful idea. And we're happy to help any way we can.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. And for those of you who aren't seeing the names and representation again, that was Kevin Kane from AAVMC. So thanks, Kevin. And for those who don't know what AAVMC is, I'm using an acronym, and I should probably say that's the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges. Is that correct, Kevin? Did I say that right?
Correct.
Very good, thank you. And I see we have Mark Rusin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Did you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'd like to throw in a few thoughts from the animal health perspective. In the process of becoming a veterinarian, it's a lot of the vet school process is focused on the disease, but when you get into food animal, it seems to extend a lot further than just simply the disease and the treatment diagnosis of disease. There's quite a bit of regulatory component. I'm with the Kentucky Office of State Veterinarian, and there are lots of parts and moving parts for the food animal producer to understand as far as what the producer needs. And that's not something that I think is well described to the new veterinarian, because they go through the process and they just want to diagnose and treat disease. But I think food animal practice is a completely different beast than, say, small animal practice, where you can more focus on the disease and the treatment and the surgery, whereas large animal and food animal practice has to do with the producer needs of herd health and prevention, regulatory. And I'm not sure that the young veterinarian is aware of this. I think this program, the loan repayment, the subsidy program is beneficial for sure, but maybe there's also a need for a more descript process. Like somebody described, they get out into the practice of large animal medicine or food animal medicine, and then they quit. And I think some of that may be just managing expectations of what's involved in being a food animal producer, and the needs and the facets of regulatory medicine that maybe they don't understand, or maybe they haven't been exposed to in the past. So for the veterinarians that are raised in the country or raised on a farm, they may have a better idea, but the veterinarians that are not raised in that environment, maybe some process through the academic systems or maybe through the federal training programs that they can better understand what their demands will be when they get out into large animal practice.
Good. And I think that really is an important point to that the expectations are and what they expect to experience is different from what they actually experience once they get into practice. I know that was hard for me, making it a business rather than just diseases, treatments, diagnostics, and things. It is a business, and that's and the business of food animal practice is very different from the business of small animal practice. You're exactly right. That actually gets to some of the concerns that we have with trying to make sure people can meet their hours in our program as well, because the needs of running the business might be greater than just the hands-on animal work or the drive time or those kinds of things. We see people that they have maybe had trouble meeting their hours, but it's because they are having to drive 4 hours to get to the producer. And that's very different from, obviously from human health practice and from small animal practice. Is we have these other issues that they're confronted with as well. So thank you for that.
And maybe some of the opportunity is to look at a different business model for the food animal producer, because our real value is in our knowledge base and not necessarily on how fast we can get to the farm. And producers that I've talked to have agreed that the veterinarian is best used for their knowledge, not necessarily for their hands-on ability, especially for producers that are a lot farther away than a couple hours from the veterinarian. So getting veterinarians into the mindset of charging for their knowledge, maybe it is a phone call, maybe it is FaceTime, maybe it is use of technology other than what we've used in the past, to where you can still maintain that client-patient relationship, maybe with an annual farm visit, but getting producers to understand that, yes, when you call me, you'll have to pay for that phone call. And some of that training has been done with the current human side telemedicine and how it's charged. And so maybe that's the process that we can make do with that 4-hour drive, make it more profitable. Not to say you should talk and drive, but then it makes it more profitable to have someone drive and you talk and you're making money while you're going to the farm.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Thank you. You still have 4 minutes, Mark, so feel free if you have anything else you'd like to share. We'd like to hear it. Are you, I was taking notes, you are in the Kentucky State Veterinarian's Office. So I assume that you have perhaps worked with developing some of the nominations for your state?
Just a little bit, just a small part of it.
Okay, and has that gone well for you?
So far, I'm relatively new to the process, so I can't really speak to the historical aspect, but yes, I think it has gone well.
Okay, very good. I'm always happy to hear that. One of that, is the SAHOs, the state ag departments are very important stakeholders for us. We know that you talk with your legislators all the time, and you try to make sure that the profession has what they need. So we always like to hear from you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, if I could throw a prompt out there, we've heard a lot about VMLRP, and that's very good and very important. It is a larger program than the VSGP, but I know that we do have some current or previous project directors of VSGP on here, whether they are practitioners or educators, and just opening the floor if any of you want to share more about your experience or how that grant specifically can better serve you and either the producers that you service or the students and veterinarians that you're teaching.
Abby, I see your hand has been raised. Abby Cannon, we'll start with you. Go ahead, Abby.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name's Abby Cannon, and I'm the Director of Public Health and Communications for the American Association of Swine Veterinarians. And we are, for the first time, we received the VSGP Education and Extension Grant in 2022, I think. So we're in the midst of our first program. And what we created was a participant-led early career early career development program. I got to remember the full name of it, but the very unique part about our program, or what we hoped was incredibly unique about our program, is that it's truly participant led. So we used grant funds to create a program for early career AASV members, serving swine clients, with priority given to those who serve in designated shortage areas or situations throughout the country, limited to 25 participants. And we meet over the course of 6 modules throughout the grant fund cycle. We've met 3 times now, so we're halfway through, and our next meeting will be in conjunction with our AASV annual meeting in just a few weeks. But the unique part about this program is it is entirely participant led. So we gathered these 25 early career swine vets within our selection criteria, had some ideas that we brought forward, the AASV Board of Directors, some of our committees, our early career committee, some other practitioners, our program facilitator in this group came up with some ideas that we thought might be useful for early career swine veterinarians to really enhance their technical skills or their business skills or whatever they might need to have successful and hopefully lifelong careers as swine veterinarians. So we provided this list of ideas, but it was very much up to the participants. They added to this list based on their own experiences, on their own identified needs and wants and desires from their current practice settings, where they saw themselves going, ranked those all of those choices to come up with the topics for each module. So very, very truly participant led. We, like I said, halfway through, so far, we've been very, very happy. We've received excellent feedback from all of those participants. I'm very excited. Well, not for the program to end because I think it's great, but once it does end, to collect all of that feedback and data and be able to share it. I think it's going to be really impactful to share some of that data. And so far, very, very positive feedback from participants. Our topics have ranged from communication was our first one. That was actually directed by our board that be a required introductory session for the program. Second was risk management, analytics, markets, very, very, very technical skills. And then the third one was all ventilation. So very different topics, but again, those were selected by the participants. So I guess with that, we are, incredibly fortunate to have that grant in place right now. The need was very clear. We had 25 seats, and I think we had over 30 apply to a pretty limited group. It was within a specified dates after graduation, criteria on who could apply and what areas they served, how we ranked them, but also we've heard there's more people that want to participate. So we look forward to applying again in the future. Hopefully that those funds are still there and we can continue this program, especially based on the positive data that we've had so far and at the end of this program. One thing that I will mention that I will share with you all, because I think it's going to be very valuable information just based on the discussions here today that I'm hearing. AASV prompted by our early career committee, is also working with some university researchers at Iowa State, looking at our retention issues. So I'm doing some deep dives into why our swine veterinarians are leaving swine practice. So going from practice into technical services or any other thing that's not swine veterinary practice, and those who are leaving the swine industry altogether. So leaving swine medicine and going, for example, small animal, which has been I guess an alarming number, a surprising number over the last few years, that we saw the need to look into the why. We can assume we know some answers, but we really wanted to know the why. So that project, I think, is almost complete. The data will be presented at our annual meeting in a few weeks. But then after that, we'll definitely be happy to share results and include USDA in our communication plan to share some of those retention issues that we've identified.
Excellent. And it seems as though with the nature of the discussion, even just today, that retention is a huge factor. It's not just getting people in. Kevin from AVMA has raised this issue with us many times, and we are trying to gather those data. It's something we hope to be able to put out there at maybe similar to what you're doing, is to get some of those data out. We have two aspects of the retention. Is one of them is how long they stay in the VMLRP program, and then when they leave the program, external to the program, how long they stay in that practice. There's two components that we see that we're trying to grapple with right now. But I appreciate very much that AASV is doing the hard work for that for swine vets as well. I think that's great.
I'll add one more thing too on the retention piece. So when we first opened applications and signups for this program, it was kind of a slow roll. We announced that we'd received the funding, opened the applications about a month later, took a couple of months to screen through those, select our applicants, hold an orientation, and then a couple of months after that, before we held our first in-person module. And between the time when we had people apply to holding our first module, we lost, I can't remember if it was two, I think it was three people who had been selected into the program with the intent to give them resources, to provide them whatever extra they needed to be successful, lifelong swine vets. They left swine medicine. So I think that helps speak to the need of programs like this, of programs that are funded through this opportunity to keep providing resources early in veterinarians' careers to help them gain everything that they don't necessarily gain in vet school.
Very good. Thank you. Abby, you still have about a minute and a half if you'd like to share anything else.
I think that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or feel free to reach out anytime if we can help with anything.
Great, thank you very much. And I appreciate that the swine veterinarian group component here, because a lot of times we do hear from more of our ruminant side and not as much from our swine practitioners. So that's very helpful. I think we'll move on to Stephen Russell. Stephen, are you still there? And would you like to come off mute?
Hi, this is actually Samantha Russell. Stephen and I are listening together.
Okay, very good.
I'm the practice manager here, and our clinic has been fortunate enough that we've had several veterinarians that have received the VMLRP, and we also received the VSGP 1 year. I guess you would ask for people that had the VSGP to respond. And that was very helpful to our practice. We were actually, part of our practice was identified again as an area of need this year, and we were going to reapply for that. However, this year it was stipulated that if you had received the VSGP previously, that there was now a waiting period in which you could reapply for that. Previously, we used that for mobile equipment. Since being awarded, Stephen has been here in the practice area for 15 years. He'd received it many years ago. Our new associate got an extension on it and is practicing in the area. We also do internships through our clinic at the high school and college level. We've successfully now got one student in vet school, actually two. One's in vet school, one is pre-admitted for vet school. And then we have 3 of the students that have gone through are seeking education on vet nursing programs. And we look forward to them graduating in a year. So we've had a lot of success getting people involved the last several years. We wanted to apply for the VSGP to help some of their educational goals along the way and do some programs and things for students who are interested. But as a private practice, we couldn't reapply for that. So I was just curious why that was implemented and if there's any opportunity to change that moving forward.
I don't have any short answer for you at the time. We get many applications for the RPE, and I assume, are you talking about the RPE or the EET? I think it's probably a private practice. It's the rural practice enhancement.
Yes, it was the rural practice enhancement.
Primarily because we're trying to share the wealth across as many practices as we can is really the short answer to this, because we get so many applications and we want to fund as many variety of practices as we can. And that was really the intent of limiting reapplication for supporting the same practice again. And I think what you're referring to is at the end of the 3-year period, there's another 5-year waiting period before you can apply. So it does make it 8 years from the first application and success to the next application. And that's really the only answer I have at the moment. And I don't know if that helps.
It makes sense. I understand that. I guess just when we're talking about retention, we are trying to, I guess, in my opinion, we're successful at retention of the program and applicants here. We're not only retaining, but we're trying to grow our own. And as we see practices around us, specifically in our area with aging veterinarians and they're retiring, and we are mixed practice, and most of the practitioners around here are mixed practice. As they retire, our practice area continues to grow because the need is out there. So we're trying to grow those applicants from here. And, as we grow, 8 years is a long time. So just, I guess, looking at needs and what could be beneficial to the retention if we can grow our own here and help educate them. 8 years is just a really long time to be able to help other young people grow up into the profession and be able to have, for lack of better words, boots on the ground in the area, to have successful mixed animal practice, food animal veterinarians in the area. So that's my only comment. Or, if I could suggest a change, it might be to reevaluate when rural practices can reapply.
Very good. I appreciate that. We will look at that. Thank you. And Samantha, you still have another 4 minutes if there's anything else that you would like to share.
I think that's it for now. Just
okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for your hard work on that, on your RPE program. We do appreciate that. We really like to see successes and like to see practices that are expanding their outreach, especially to those high school students or college students, and get them in the pipeline as we've talked about. So we do appreciate that, and I don't want that to go unnoted, how important that is. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy, do you want me to address this issue with regard to
Yes, if
the
you would like to.
8-year the
Mhm.
8-year thing? And I know we've given that a lot of consideration, and I certainly hear the concerns. The fact is, you know, RPE is only 1/3 of the funds that we actually receive from Congress. 2/3 of the funds that we receive to implement the programs go to the EET program, and just 1/3 goes to the RPE. We take the funds that are even in our allotment for this year, that allows us maybe to have 10 awards per year. And when we're getting, like we did last year, 40 to 50 awards, and we are only able to support 30% of those that apply, it's pretty hard. What we really want to do is we want to spread the wealth to as many practices as possible. And if we start allowing practices to come in and get these repeat awards without other practices even having a chance to get one, it creates a little bit of a problem. That's how we envision it right now. But yeah, if we had more funds, you know, we could hire or select more clinics to get these awards, because I think they're really great awards. And I think just about every clinic would love to have one. And if we start looking at the number of clinics across the whole United States, it's really difficult to make sure that everybody gets one. So, but that's why we decided, we realized that longevity of a vehicle, they're lucky if they can get it to go for 8 years, but that's why we've decided it's got to be 5 years after the end of their first award for the VSGP RPE that they can go ahead and renew. So it's even now, what is it? The first awardee was 2016. So this would be the first opportunity for, I think we only gave 4 awards 2016. So potentially one of those 4 awardees could decide that they want to reapply. But you know, the other issue is they have to be applying for a nomination that's been created by the state animal health official. They can't go back to the original shortage nomination that they used for their first award 8 years prior to that, okay? And so they need to sort of say, I'm thinking about it, applying for it next year because it's been 8 years. And now I need to reach out to the state animal health official, and I need to go ahead and see if they're willing to nominate my area again. Because as we're hearing from the audience throughout, the you know, dynamics of a practice area really change in a short period of time, whether it's due to something like COVID-19 or the other economics that affect that area. You know, things do change over time, and we need to figure out how we're going to accommodate that. Sorry for being so windy.
That's okay. I definitely understand where you guys are coming from. For us, it was, you know, we weren't wanting, our first grant was definitely based on equipment. We had mobile equipment that we added to the practice. We were hoping our second grant could actually be used to further the education of students in the area interested in, you know, veterinary medicine, not just veterinarians themselves, but also, you know, support staff in the area, and just growing those individuals to go out throughout the state of Kansas and not just help ourselves, but help the profession as a whole, because I'll be honest, we can't help all the people in our area that need assistance.
Yeah, no, I commend you on what you're doing. Thank you very much.
So with that, Samantha, do you need to, or wish to say anything else? Or Bob, I see that you went to mute, either one of you, you still could take some time.
Nope, I think I'm done, and I just wanted to thank you guys for having this, and also thank Bob for all of his help on our applications previously. He was a great resource for us, so.
Great, thanks for your input, Samantha, and thanks for joining us today. I think it looks as though Abigail Mickelson has your hand up again. Go ahead, Abigail. And you're, okay, now you're off mute. Very good.
Yes. So I can speak on behalf of being a VSGP rural practice recipient, and it was fantastic for our practice. Absolutely was able to promote us being able to continue to serve our clients and reach out to clients in need in more rural areas. As I briefly mentioned earlier, I had applied for it in 2020 and things changed so much that I think our experience is going to be a little bit different than overall everyone else's. And my only feedback for it would be help with maybe needing to modify a few things. And I have emailed and bothered Bob a few times, and he's very responsive and was a big help in answering my questions. But it's pretty daunting when I go into the system to make edits or, submit the forms for not resubmission, but just kind of a status update. I think just another resource to be able to help with that, because I would really like to adjust how some of those funds could be used different from what I had initially applied for, because so much has changed. But I've almost been hesitant to do so because it just seems like such a daunting task. But I want to, overall, it was a great help to our practice. Definitely made us be able to stay in the game just a little bit longer.
Excellent. It's wonderful to hear that, first of all, that this is something that has been so beneficial to you and that you were able to stay in practice because of it. That's really the whole nature of the program, is to help folks over some of those difficult periods as well. So I'm glad to hear that. As far as making adjustments, I'm glad you're working with Bob and getting those changes made, especially because it sounds like you have a good justification for it. It was not something that you could foresee in 2019, I suppose, when you developed your application, that in 2020 everything would shift so dramatically. And we've really tried in our programs across the board, not just in VSGP, but to accommodate everyone who was impacted by COVID, and the impacts to so many of our programs were just enormous. And so I'm glad to hear that we were able to help you through that. And Bob is very dedicated to the VSGP program, and he really does commendable work with all of our applicants and awardees. That's a shout out to Bob, but it's certainly something he has a passion for. So I'm glad he's been able to help you.
Yeah, it's been a good experience, a little bit challenging at times because of changes in the practice dynamic. But I would say, and the other part I was going to add with that, of having some sort of mentorship program with previous recipients to maybe current ones or current applicants would be beneficial. Of just, it'd be nice if I had, in hindsight, someone say, hey, this is how you should approach it, or even involve the business owner as well. Because I think that was a big mistake I had made on my part, is I have no dog in this fight because I'm just an associate, and that creates tensions. And
because the award goes to the clinic is yes. Okay, very good point.
So it gets a little hurt feelings rather quickly when I've put in all of this work to make sure I maintain and stay a large animal veterinarian. But now I'm being asked to do small animal veterinarian because that's what the quote practice needs right now. The tough pill to swallow. We're working through it, but and I had emailed Bob earlier and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear you think about getting out of it." Nope, here I am, Bob. You can't get rid of me that easy in the large animal world.
Yeah,
Good.
but if I can just add a comment, so you, and then we've had this, I was going to mention to you, we've had this with other individuals that wrote the proposals on behalf of the clinic, and then they end up parting ways. And so the clinic is the one that gets the award. You can go to another clinic if you so choose. And if that area is being renominated, you can apply for it as maybe the clinic owner or with that new clinic. Clinics that utilize an individual that has a VMLRP award, they must retain that person for the duration of the VSGP 3-year contract, okay? But remember that VSGP is to the clinic, wasn't to you. So if you leave the clinic and you can't take any of the equipment with you, but you could go to another clinic if you so choose to stay in food animal and want to apply to a shortage area, and you could apply again. You've already been successful, obviously, and so you could actually apply because it's not the clinic that applied a second time. It's you, and the awards go to the clinic. Does that make sense?
Yes, that absolutely makes sense. And that actually helped quite a bit with negotiations of, hey, I've been obviously really successful with one being a practitioner, getting awards, writing grants. There's absolutely nothing stopping me from setting up my own shop because we are back into an underserved area. So that helped quite a bit, actually leverage for myself in this situation. And that's where I think it's important for people to know, and for the practice to know as well, because I think there was some hesitation like, well, we have all this equipment, would that go with her if she doesn't stay here? So no, that absolutely makes sense, Bob, and has been very helpful for us.
Yeah, we definitely want to keep you in the food animal business, so please work with us.
Will do.
Well, I also wanted to thank you to both Bob and Abigail for those comments. One of the things that occurred to me as Bob was speaking and Abigail was raising some of these issues is the nuances of these programs can be a little bit overwhelming. And the mentorship idea is excellent because the details, how the regulations have been written, the rules, the policies, they can be rather arcane and challenging to access. And some of it's, the RFAs are not easy to read. We know that federal RFAs are a bit daunting in many ways, and the application system. So I appreciate hearing that. I don't know that we have any answers except perhaps the mentorship that you just mentioned and the connections that we can help you make. I think those things are within the purview of the program, and we'll certainly we will work to address those things in our strategic planning. Is how can we better support applicants and awardees? So yeah, thanks for that, bringing those up. I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm going to just kind of wait a bit here and see if anyone else would like to raise any new topics, old topics, address things that have been said. It is, by my clock, it's about 10 minutes to 1 Central Time. And Danielle, I'm going to do a time check here. That means we have roughly an hour and 10 minutes left. Is that right?
That's correct.
Good. So anyone who has not raised their hand and brought up something that's just really important to you, this is the time to do it. So please feel free. We don't want anyone to go unheard after this session. And I saw Steve Ensley's hand go up and then go down, and now I see, Steve, that you are off mute. So if you want to jump in here, please do. Steve, I can't hear you if you're speaking, and that's okay. If you're having trouble with your microphone or anything, let Danielle know in the chat or somewhere so we can get in touch with you.
How about now?
Yep, there you are. Very good.
So I'm Steve Ensley. I'm a veterinary toxicologist at Kansas State, and we were able to get a VSGP EET grant to help train veterinary food animal toxicologists, because there's very few of us, but we feel like it's an important specialty, especially for food animals or production animals. And so we were able to recruit a resident, train him. He passed the tox boards, and we've recruited a second resident. This is her. She's been here since was a University of Florida graduate that working with us on a food animal veterinary toxicology residency program. So it's been really very helpful for us. We work with there's just very few toxicologists in the veterinary diagnostic labs that are doing food animals. So we get a lot of cases from all over the United States, and so it's been very, very helpful. We've got to do some extension work too. That's through the veterinary school, and we also do liver biopsy training for veterinarians. We do a lot of work with minerals and vitamins in food animals. So it's helpful to be able to go out and train some veterinarians to be able to submit samples that help us do that. So yeah, just in general, it's been great to work with Bob on this. He helped us a lot with our application, and continually kind of visit with him to let him know what's going on or what we're going to do. And we're also in the process. We're going to have a food animal poison call-in line. Like there's two different programs in the US for call-in hotlines, but they're all for the two are all for small animals. But we're going to work with one of the two, hopefully here, in the next month, to get up and running on a call-in hotline for food animals. So we're excited about that. It's going to be probably a work in progress to see how it actually goes. But so for us, it's been great, and probably wouldn't be able to do what we do without the grant.
Oh, and I think that's excellent. It's so nice to hear that. Steve, did you get the EET award for 250,000? Is that what it was?
Yes.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, and I appreciate that, because I think, some of the underserved programs, in some ways under-recognized programs of toxicology and parasitology and some of these things that don't really have any other source of funding for veterinarians and veterinary medicine for large animals. I always like to see the VSGP be able to support them, and not just have to rely on the states to do this, but to have the federal government do a piece of that. So, and I appreciate the training, because it's a science. I think it's getting more important all the time when we have so many more feed sources and drugs and things that animals can be exposed to. And, you know, I just mentioned the Fair Ed program. I know you're familiar with them, and how, you know, if we could, we would like to see that expanded so that the public has more awareness of that as well. So I appreciate that you're looking at a hotline for large animals too. I hope that works out for you. I don't know if Bob wanted to say anything, or at this point, since you have worked with Bob.
Not really, but appreciate the opportunity, Kathy, and we've worked closely with this group, and Steve has done an outstanding job. And you know, it just reflects back. You know, I've been out of school over 4 decades now, but there used to be large animal food animal hotlines, and I guess they've sort of disappeared over the years. And it's great to see that there's those experts that are still out there that are willing to try to build this kind of a hotline. You know, we currently, our food animal residue avoidance database program, the one that you and I work with, Kathy, and many of you on this call might be familiar with. They also have hotlines that are running 24/7. And so it's nice to see that if we can get Kansas State University, maybe some other down the road participants to be able to run these type of operations, I think they're going to be extremely beneficial to the food animal practitioners. Because right now, FARAD does answer a lot of those questions regarding some of the tox questions that come up. And they either need to start incorporating toxicologists into their group, or they need to somehow join together with groups like Steve's developing and have those resources available to the food animal practitioners across the United States. But I commend Steve Ensley and his team and what they're doing.
Thanks for jumping in there, Bob. Steve, you still have 3 minutes. Please, we used up some of your time, so please feel free to continue. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, if there's any large animal practitioners, especially that have any interest in toxicology, we'd be glad to hear from them and see, you know, what their thoughts are. But we'd like to interact more with FARAD and get our hotline up and running, because we do see a lot of toxicology issues, and you know, anymore, just the size of the animal herds that we deal with are, you know, can be a large impact, you know, negative impact if we can't figure out what's going on, or can't, you know, make a good diagnosis. But I've been a veterinarian for 40 years, and toxicology is interesting. I hear, you know, probably every week I, you know, learn something new that I haven't seen before. So it's really interesting as well. So. And
I'll just jump in here as I'm also the national program leader for our NIFA AFRI program, diseases of agricultural animals. And so we see applications for research proposals all the time that are related to toxicology. And one of the compounds that's really rising in concern, I guess is the way to say it, is the PFAS. And a lot of folks are needing information on that. And I know we've funded a conference on that a few months ago to get that information out to practitioners in certain areas of the country. So compounds like that they talk about, forever chemicals, those are the kind of things where NIFA does try to support getting that research done and getting the information out to practitioners. And I don't know that we have easy answers, but we're certainly trying to get the information out there.
Yeah, the PFAS compounds are a huge issue, and there's a lot more we don't know, or the residue issues with it. We know they're there, but yeah, there's continually, you know, something like that raises its head all the time anymore, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another one of those areas, maybe we need to work on connecting people to get them the resources and knowledge that they need for practice. So, so thanks. And if you'd like to share anything else, please feel free.
No, I probably talked enough. I don't want to take up too much.
No, that's okay. So, you know, we have plenty of time. And we have one more hour here. So anyone, Steve, you or anyone else that wants to speak, please feel free. I was just checking the chat to see if any questions had been raised. And I see we've lost some of our stakeholders a bit, moving on to other meetings. And I just want folks to know that we are collecting all of the comments, either from this session where we're doing them online together or in writing. And our plan moving forward will be to compile all of the comments. And as Danielle said earlier, we'll be putting the recording online. Also going to find a way to summarize all of the issues, all of the topics, comments, and get that out into some sort of a report so people understand the maybe the emphasis of the listening session and how we contribute, how NIFA and this group all contribute to trying to resolve the issues around food animal veterinary practice. They're not just financial, as we're hearing here today. And I think that we need to bring all that forward. I'm going to take about a 5-minute break here and turn it over to Danielle and perhaps Bob if there are veterinary questions. I'll be right back.
As Kathy was saying, you know, for the 22 of you who are still on the line with us, we'd love to hear from you, especially on some of the questions that we're prompting in our Federal Register notice and at the beginning of the listening session, which is what is your top priority for the VMLRP or VSGP in the next decade? What are the greatest challenges that you see facing food animal veterinary practice with respect to the VMLRP and VSGP in the coming decade? What improvements or enhancements you would like to make to VMLRP and VSGP? And what are the most promising opportunities, solutions for food animal veterinary practice with respect to VMLRP and VSGP in the coming decade? Those are some of the prompts we have. And we'd love to hear from more of you that are on the call.
Well, I'll just jump in here again. This is Kathy again, just for a moment, and maybe Danielle covered this, but we are leaving the listening session open until 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And that is for anyone who is currently on to speak up if you want. Sometimes people can jump in for the latter half of a listening session where they missed the first half, so we don't want to close anything down in case people have to join us late. So I just want you to know that we'll keep the microphone open here until the scheduled time, but there will be lapses where we won't have people speaking, and we'll have some silence. Danielle and I will keep jumping in and commenting that we're still here, and if anyone wants to speak, to do so. And just so folks who know when they join the call that we are all here, and it's not that we've gone silent or anything. We're just keeping the line open. I guess one more comment I'll make, because I have the lowest threshold for silence here, I guess, is that make sure everyone who's interested knows that the RFAs, I believe both RFAs have been posted for the FY24 cycle, and that the shortage area nominations have also been posted. So we are ramping up for the next cycle for both of these programs. The information's available online to everyone. If anyone needs assistance, we hope that you will be able to join. I'm going to actually reach beyond my knowledge here and ask Danielle if we have a technical assistance webinar scheduled for the RFAs and the applications yet. Do we have that on our schedule?
Not yet, but we will
Okay.
be hosting those, and we'll be making them publicly known.
Very good. And that's one of those resources that gets into the idea of some mentorship, that we really try to get the information out to all of our potential applicants. We get new applicants every year who haven't worked in our federal system, and grants.gov and the requirement for a unique identifier and all of those hurdles that the federal system can throw at people. So it's really important that if anyone's planning on applying for VSGP, that they get with one of us, maybe, to sort out how to apply for your unique entity identifier, or at least go online and start that process through sam.gov. I think it is, Danielle. Is that right? Very good.
That's correct.
Danielle, I just went in to find our most recent information on the virtual grant support technical assistance workshops that start in March. And I'm going to put the link into the chat. You might already have done this, so I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but I'm just going to put this in again, and this is the workshop for, we have 5 days of workshops from NIFA on accessing resources and grants development, an overview of our NIFA programs, opportunities for selective NIFA applicants, learning moments from grants management, and reporting and related topics. So if anyone's looking for some overarching technical assistance information from NIFA, please look at that website and see what's available now to you without having to join a specific webinar on VSGP and VMLRP that might be helpful to some of you. I'm also putting the RFA information in the chat for anyone who needs that for both of these programs. Looks like our numbers are declining of participants, and those of you who are still hanging around, I hope we can get any comments from you that you would like us to have. If not, please do put them in writing to us. The link is not showing up in the chat. Did I not put it in the right place? I have
Yeah, Kathy, you're probably, when you see in the chat, there's 2 options. There's you're able to message the host and panelists, which I think you did, and
Yes.
then message to everyone. I'll repost them.
Would you? Thank you very
Yes.
much. I thought that the hosts and panelists were everyone, but you're right. I have, thank you very much, Danielle. I should have seen that there was an everyone. Which doesn't show up on my, to be honest, it doesn't show up on my chat. So thank you. Were you able to get them posted, Danielle? For everyone?
I think so.
Okay. Good. If you're not seeing them, and I think that the person that, let me see who was mentioned that to us. Diane, I think that was you, or if you're still on with us, that wasn't able to see the links. Oh, it's Beth. It was Beth Johnson who said she couldn't see them in the chat. Beth, I don't know if you're still on, but if you can't see them, please let us know. We'll try and find another way to get them to you.
She's got them now. Thanks, Beth.
Excellent. Yes, thanks, Beth and Terry. I see that you also commented on there. Okay, good. I am not as good at Zoom as Danielle is, so I don't see the details as well as she does, or Terry. While we have a few minutes of quiet, I just want to send a thank you out to our ASL interpreters who have been with us for the past several hours and are working so hard to get this information out. I think that we have a system where we will have the ASL interpretation in the recording, as I understand it. So it's if anyone who accesses these recordings has any hearing issues, they'll be able to access the information as well. So my thanks to Elaine and Alan for sticking with us and being here to support the hearing community, the community who needs their services. Well, while we have time, again, I have the lowest threshold for silence. I'm going to have, let's see, is Marlene still on? I'm not sure who's on from program staff. And I was going to ask if Marlene would like, since you've seen Danielle and Bob and I today, I don't know if Marlene and Meredith and Terry would like to introduce themselves. And just take a moment. There she is, Marlene. I don't want to steal your thunder. You go ahead and introduce yourself, would you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Marlene Azevedo, and I am the VMLRP program coordinator here at NIFA. So thanks for joining us today and hearing what you have to say about the two programs.
Many of you probably have been in contact with Marlene if you've been involved with the program over the years. She is a wealth of information and she's always very helpful to anyone who needs information. It's a very complicated program and we really rely on people who are well-versed in all of the details and the nuances of the program. And let's see, do we have Meredith? Are you still on with us? Would you, if you want to introduce yourself, there you are. Go ahead, Meredith.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Berry. I work with the whole team as a program assistant, and it was interesting listening to all your comments. I'm looking forward to putting all this together and see what comes of it. So thank you all for participating.
Thanks, Meredith. And Terry's another integral part of all of our NIFA programs. Terry, would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry to put you on the spot, but.
No problem, Kathy. Hi, everybody. I'm Terry Radke. I'm a program specialist with NIFA. I'm the backup on the VMLRP program. So enjoyed sitting in and listening today.
Thanks, Terry. And did I miss anyone? Realize I don't want to put anybody on the spot if I don't have to. So Elaine, we've been staring at you here now for 3 hours. Would you like to say anything? Okay. Or Alan, you guys are working so hard. Right, we're down to 8 attendees and I don't see any hands up. So we are, we'll be on, as I said, another 40 minutes. And we'll just kind of hang out here. So I think what I'll do, since we haven't had any comments for about 5 minutes, maybe 10, we are now down to 6 attendees. If any of the 6 who are still on would like to speak, please let us know. And I think what we'll do is we'll stay on as the panelists and hosts. The 6 of you all who are registered as attendees, you'll hear a lot of silence here for the next 35 minutes. If you want to leave, please feel free. If you want to speak, please go ahead. But we're really just staying on right now so that anybody who had planned to join the listening session during the last hour or half hour or 15 minutes because of their own schedules, whether it's in practice or other work, we don't want to end the listening session before they have a chance to join. So those 6 of you, you're certainly welcome to hang on. You're going to hear silence, and some of us will start working on responding to some of the comments and some emails throughout the day. But otherwise, feel free to leave if you'd like to. It's possible we won't have anyone else join to provide any comments, and we don't expect you to stay around. Remember that if there are more comments, we'll certainly be putting them out there for the public. And again, thank you very, very much for all of the inputs that you've provided today. And it's just really important to us. We haven't done this before. It's been probably 10 years since we actually had a stakeholder session like this. I know we were kind of a small group, but the impacts of this program are far reaching. And that's the thing that we hear the most these days. People from around the country are trying to deal with food animal veterinary shortages. And they don't always think of us in the loan repayment program, but we certainly hear about them. And we try to contribute as much as we can to those efforts. Hi, everyone. This is Kathy again. I just thought I'd let you know that I have heard from some folks who will be submitting written comments after the listening session today. So I'm hoping that what we have here is that people had ideas after listening to a lot of these, a lot of the exchange here between the program and the other stakeholders. And that with that, we'll get written comments that we can actually use and really tackle and in a strategic plan. I guess from my perspective, we're in such a state of change right now that we need to, we really need to get this information out to people about what we're doing and work with some of the other stakeholders who are initiating programs to try to deal with this issue and make sure that we're doing the best we can to support these veterinarians. Some of the things I heard today were surprising to me, but it was nice to hear some solutions. So we have another, looks like 25 minutes or so. I hope, Alan, that isn't any issue for you as the ASL interpreter. If you need to leave, we understand. But if you don't want to leave and you want to stay, very good. Thank you. Well, I think I still have the lowest threshold for silence, so I'm doing a countdown here. It's 1:39 by my clock, so we still have 20 minutes. And I'm going to hold on till the end, and Alan has said he'll hold on till the end. So I'm sure the rest of the program staff will as well. So we're just going to keep listening here in case anybody joins at the last minute. And we'll call it a wrap in about 20 minutes. And then those of us who worked through lunch, and I think that's probably all of us who are still on right now, can actually take a break and go get some food and move on with lots of other things that we have. I think our group here has plenty to address from all the notes that we took on this and the ideas. So we have plenty of work ahead of us. And I never realized how long silences can be. I don't think I've ever been on a Zoom call where it was so silent for so long. Very good. Thank you all for attending today. Thank you for all of the inputs that we received from our stakeholders. We really appreciate it. The program staff here has been listening and taking notes, and we anticipate putting some results out there as soon as we can. We will be using this for guidance for our programs. And once again, thanks again. If anyone else would like to say anything to our stakeholders here, please do so. Otherwise, I think we will call it a day. Thanks, Danielle.